My computer is stuck.
In what? Oh my god. So important.
Breaking news on 9 on your side.
Well, good morning. We interrupt programming right now for some breaking news.
The Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters is making an announcement in the Tenzing case. Let's listen in right now.
For careful consideration, interviews of certain jurors, review of the transcripts and trial activities, we've determined that there is, in fact, a probability of success in another trial, and we will be doing that. We expect on Monday to be meeting with Judge Shanahan to discuss the logistics of all this, but I can tell you that we are going to request, the state of Ohio will request a change of venue in this case. It is our belief that the public attention that's been focused on the Tenzing case could have, in fact, seeped into the jury room, and we're going to try to alleviate that by moving the trial. But it's up to Judge Shanahan.
Do you mean seeped into the jury room having an effect on their decision? We understand that they were afraid. Was it more than that, Joe?
There was discussions, we believe, in the jury room concerning penalty, which is improper, and other issues concerning sympathy for the defendant, which is improper. And we're going to try to alleviate that by moving the case.
So how many jurors did you have a chance to interview?
About half. As a matter of fact, one's being interviewed right now.
Have you discussed the possible change of venue with Tenzing's attorneys, Stu Matthews?
Yes, we have.
And what was the response to that?
They don't want to move it. But that's not their call. It's the judge's call.
What made them change their mind? Did
They got a hung jury here. They got a hung jury here, you know?
Along those lines, explain to people out there why you feel this is winnable now. It's expensive. No matter how you calculate it, most jurors said no to murder. What did you gather from your week of going over transcripts and talking to jurors that made you see this in a different way and made you see it winnable?
Well, I can tell you this. As of Friday night, we learned that the jury was 10-2 for voluntary manslaughter. There were still 3 or 4 that were willing to go to murder, but slid down in terms of the vote count. And I mean, that helps me make my decision. So whether it was a compromise or whatever, and I also think that I fault myself, and I mean the 2 assistants I tried the case with were fantastic. We just need to do a better job.
What do you mean you fault yourself? You're taking this very personally.
I think that there were ways I could have couched my arguments differently, but it doesn't matter. If we're successful in moving this trial to another jurisdiction out of this media market, I think that our arguments will be much more persuasive.
So if you're not able to move the trial, and Judge Shanahan says no, how challenging would it be to find an impartial jury?
It'd be very difficult. It would be incredibly difficult. But nonetheless, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to move this thing.
Has any trial ever been moved out of Hamilton County?
It's a good question. I don't remember one.
Mr. News, what makes you believe, though, a jury in some other county won't let sympathy or penalty creep into a jury room as they were here? I mean, these jurors were protected from the media, counseled every day not to check this case out in the media. What makes you believe it may be?
They got over a year of this case, you know, as citizens before they were called as jurors, and heard about his background, heard about Sam's background, and I mean, I just think that it's best if we had a point in this trial, if you recall, where the jurors wouldn't even come out of the jury room. We had a revolt going on in the jury room at one point because they were afraid that their names would be known. We moved to another jurisdiction. I don't know the jurors will care. They don't live in Cincinnati. So it's a different scenario entirely.
Do you have your eye on a particular county?
Cleveland or Columbus would be fine with me.
Joe, let's talk about, you mentioned the revolt in the jury room. Struck by the jury instructions, and we talked about that afterwards, how complicated those instructions were for the jurors. How do you fix that? Is there a way to do that?
I think the biggest snag was in the voluntary manslaughter. They also got an instruction on justification, and it kind of runs counter to that. I mean, a sudden fit of passion, and then you have justification. Well, it's one or the other. So I don't think you can justify a voluntary manslaughter. You can justify a murder under Ohio law. I don't think you can justify it.
You'll still press forward with the voluntary manslaughter charge?
Yes, we'll do both again.
You talked to the DeBose family before this news conference.
Yes.
What did you say to them? What did they say?
I did not. Our victim advocates talked to them, and they just wanted to know that we were going to retry it. They wanted to know the charges that we're going forward on were the same, and they are.
Having, for them to say, the mother to say, I would rather he walk away free than to try for a lesser compromise charge. You must feel the same way. You wouldn't be.
No, I mean, his statements to Cincinnati Police Homicide Division and on the stand were that he intentionally shot him in the head. Period. Okay? So that's not reckless. That's not negligent. I don't know what people don't understand about this. It's very simple. He intentionally did this act. The only question is, was this done in a sudden fit of rage, or was it justified under the law? He has taken the position, the defendant in defense has taken the position that it was justified. We disagree with that, fundamentally. And we're going to move forward with this. We're going to get, hopefully, a new jurisdiction, no offense, a new media market, and just try this case with jurors who aren't afraid to come out of the jury room at some point.
So what happens if there is another mistrial? Just technically, what would happen then? Would you go a third time?
It depends. What I don't know. That's just pure speculation.
Will you personally be retrying the case?
Yes.
Will you be a part of it?
Yes.
Stu Matthews has said, this isn't about justice. Hamilton County had a shot at justice, and the jury was hung. He says it's about politics and about pressure from the community. What do you say to him?
He's just wrong. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, I will admit to you, I have met with people interested in this case from the community. I've heard from both sides many times. I mean, just from around the country. But that's not what's affecting my decision. My decision is based on the likelihood of success at trial, and that's it. If I thought we couldn't win this case, we would not retry this case.
And you have some ideas, clearly, of what you're going to do differently.
Yes, we do. We do.
Share?
No.
What's the timing expectation of a new trial?
I'd like to do it no later than this spring, if possible. there's a lot of logistics involved. If we're successful in moving the trial out of Cincinnati, we're looking at, there's a lot of issues. I mean, most courthouses are filled and they got their jobs to do around the state, and we've got to find one that we can do it in.
Joe, I know everybody's interested in what the jurors were talking about, and we're thinking about 25 hours, a long deliberation process. Share some insight, if you can, about how difficult it was. I'm sure your hats off to the jurors who tried. They all stayed in that room for 25 hours. It's a long time. How difficult was it, do you think?
I think it was really difficult. You know, you ask lay people to get in this situation, you know, and when you get called to jury duty, sometimes it, you know, sounds glamorous and everything, and then you come down to it, and we got jurors crying in the jury box. It's a very difficult thing for lay people to deal with. We deal with it every day. It's quite different, but there's no question in my mind that issues were being discussed in there that should not have been discussed.
I know Tarina has said that she's been reading some online forums and so forth, and she says some people feel Sam DeBose deserved to die because he had too many kids, or because he was black, or the lifestyle he lived. How do you convince jurors to leave all that out? I mean, hopefully the goal would be to find people who don't know anything about the case. That's the likelihood, right?
It is, but it absolutely crept. It absolutely crept into the jury room, and you know, and just to clarify, we got a clarification last week about the first vote. The first vote was, did he intentionally shoot him in the head? And that was yes. Unanimous.
But then they have to go on.
Then they go to justification. Correct. Correct.
So do you think a Cuyahoga County jury would be less emotional, less just deal with the facts because they've been removed by everything Hamilton County has experienced?
I think so. I mean, I think when you see people, you know, protesting daily, and you see people one way or the other demanding some type of verdict, I think it puts pressure on people, and they live in that community. I think it's different. I think it would be different.
Our station in Cleveland this morning requested my story about the decision coming down today. So they're playing this story in Cleveland. Have you kind of taken a look at how the media is responding in those cities before we, you know, address a change of venue?
No. I can guarantee you it's nothing like it's been here. There's no chance. And I'll go to Hawaii and try it if they want, but I don't think it's going to happen.
This is precedent-setting, this, the change of venue request. We've talked about this before. Kirkland, we've had serial killers, we've had home estate savings, we've had so many major cases where lives were really affected in Hamilton County. So this is a very unusual move for your office.
It's very unusual, and you know, the technology that we have today has overrun the common practice of trying cases. I mean, on social media and what's happened has just exploded about this case, and we've never had that before. It's a fact. We've never had that before, and you know, when we did the Kirkland case, he killed those 4 girls. He asked jurors, and I bet 90% of them never heard of the case at all. If you polled today in Hamilton County, I bet 95% of people heard of this case and done something about it.
Is there anything you would change about the jury questionnaire in the second case?
There might be some adjustments, but it was pretty thorough. It was a pretty thorough questionnaire. We pretty much knew what we had going into it.
Would you like to see a more racially diverse jury?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we had I think we had 2 African American males in the box who didn't want to serve, and we had 3 behind us who were coming that didn't want to serve. And, you know, look, I really don't want race to be an issue in this case. I really don't. But it's hanging out there. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. And I just want people to follow their oaths, do what the judge asks them to do, and if they do that, I think we have a probability of success at trial.
Elephant in the room is putting it mildly. This is how the country sees this: is a white police officer killing an unarmed black man. It's there. You can't escape that.
But we've reviewed cases where black officers have killed white people, unarmed white people, and I've cleared them depending on the circumstances. This is really, and I've said this before, I said it in closing, if we didn't have a body cam in this case, we'd have nothing. Because we've got an officer saying he's being dragged 20 feet or 30 feet, and we know that's a total lie. It's a total lie.
What were the jurors afraid of? Did they say specifically? I know afraid of
they were afraid of their identities. And I think it went both ways. I don't think they were worried about protesters out in front of the courthouse. I don't know that at all. I just know that they did not want to be identified, and they were scared to death of it, to the point where they wouldn't leave the jury room. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we had about a 3-hour period where they were like, we're not going out there.
Do you fault Judge Shanahan at all for the...
Not at all. She's great.
Circumstances? It was difficult
No,
to cover,
no.
obviously.
Judge Shanahan, I think, did a fantastic job. She was incredibly fair to both sides, and she's a great judge.
Do you believe it's worth maybe mentioning to juries that who you are will be known at some point? It's public record in Ohio.
I don't know. I think that there's a process for it becoming a public record. I think that if the judge orders them not be revealed, that the media has a chance to have a hearing on it. And if the judge believes that there's a compelling reason not to reveal them, I don't think the judge has to reveal them.
Is there a hearing still on this case?
No.
You
They withdrew it.
You may mention several times after the mistrial that you were basically having to argue complex legal matters, the murder, to lay people in a jury box. You're going to ask for a change of venue, you say. Say you take this to Franklin or Cuyahoga County. You got to argue the same complex legal issue to 12 lay people, as you say. What are you going to do different this time to make them understand why this is a murder?
Well, we've discussed strategies in terms of argument and evidentiary issues that we will bring forth. I'm not going to tell the defense what we're going to do, but we're going to do our best to seek justice. And, I don't disagree that it's going to be difficult. So.
Joe, really quick question. It's been really fascinating to get to know the DeBose family, and Tarina in particular. I find that she's become a student of the law to a point, and she talked about how
She probably could try this case.
She knows the ins and outs.
Yeah.
She feels that Stu Matthews did not successfully give the affirmative defense requirement. They didn't meet that. How will you address that in the next?
Well, that's an argument that I think we need to stress more. Once they argue justification, it's not our burden anymore. It's theirs. And they've got to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, which is a weighing test. It's just scales of justice, And if they don't outweigh even a little bit, they fail. And I don't know that we did a good enough job in that.
Jamie, this could have been easy for you to say, we gave it our best shot, we put on a great case. How difficult was it for you, or was it, to step back and look at this and say, it's going to be hard, it's going to be expensive, we're going to have to rework our presentation, but I feel this is right. And I'm not saying that's what you said, but you're the decider in this, and you had a lot to consider and a lot to weigh personally as well.
It's very rare that we retry these kind of cases. I mean, it is rare. But the vote totals, and after talking to the jurors, convinced me that we could win this thing. It would be successful. I don't like to use the term win because it sounds like it's some athletic event. We are seeking justice. It's my belief that Sam DuBose was murdered, period. And, Sam, according to accounts, because I never knew him, was a good guy. He was in trouble a lot, like a lot of people are. But that doesn't make his life any less relevant or have less value. And as I've said 100 times, in the country that I love, you don't get shot in the head for getting pulled over on a traffic stop. And that's what happened here. And it troubles me deeply that this happened. And I've said this also a lot. There's bad prosecutors, there's bad reporters, there's bad judges. The measure of an institution is not that you have someone bad in your group. The measure of the institution is when you have someone that's not right, how you deal with it. And we're dealing with it. And I'm going to deal with it.
Your tone is different today. Is this humbling? What have you learned from all of this?
Not much. I mean, I've learned a lot from juror interviews and things like that. But we are determined to improve what we did with the last jury, and hopefully get justice for our community.
Deb touched on it. Change of venue is very expensive. What does the case cost so far?
I have no idea.
I mean, obviously that's got to be a consideration for the judge.
I mean, it is, but I mean, things are expensive in government, they are. And I'm sure it's going to be expensive for your TV stations to drive to Cleveland.
Joe, do you have any idea? Do you have any idea, Joe, about when Ray Tenzing watched the video, the body cam, before giving the statement to Cincinnati police investigators? Was he able to do so frame by frame, or did he just watch that a few times in real time, or do you have?
That's correct.
In real time?
The latter, yeah.
Okay, because it does. You said it in one news conference after one of the court proceedings. You said he apparently didn't pay much attention to it. I think a lot of people are puzzled how you could see that. And still...
It's mind-boggling to me that anyone can listen to his statement to CPD and watch that video and believe what he was saying was truthful. But everybody wants to cloud it under, it's a split-second decision. I don't know what's happening. It was perceived. It changed about 3 times. And I don't want to get into arguments on the case, but it's something that I think our team needs to do better.
The 4 people did believe that. 4 people
Yeah,
on the jury saw
correct.
testify.
Well, we had 10-2 on Friday night for voluntary manslaughter. And I think that was moving towards some kind of compromise. There were 3 or 4 who wanted murder. So,
At the end of the debate here, Joe, do you think, like UC's made big changes, obviously in policing, and does this just move the ball forward on that front, that training is critical?
I think UC's made some great changes. I mean, the people they've brought in are very good professional law enforcement people, and I think they're doing a really good job.
You still comfortable with?
Yes, I am. Yep, I am.
So, David, you've said several times today that we'll have to do better next time. Do you believe if you erase all of the outside peripheral stuff from this jury and what went on in that jury room, do you believe this case was hung based on the arguments of the defense maybe the evidence or lack thereof presented by the state to prove murder?
I tend to blame myself about things like this. I've never had a hung jury in my life, ever. And I can't even remember the last time I had a not guilty verdict, maybe 30 years ago. But I just believe that, I believe the truth is this. I believe he intentionally shot him in the head. I believe it wasn't justified. And I believe that this community, not the DuBose family, this community deserves justice. And that's what we're going to do.
And I'm asking, though, do you believe you all won or lost on the merits alone, the evidence alone, and the arguments made in that courtroom? If you erase everything else that you believe influenced this jury, do you believe you did enough to win, if you want to call it that, or to convict Ray Tenzing?
I think we did, but I think we could do it better. And I don't want to have a situation where we got a jury that won't come out of the jury room because they're afraid their identities will be known in the community. And that's what we had here in Cincinnati. That's why we're asking for the change of venue, and hopefully we'll get it.
You don't think, though, if you move this to anywhere, that the media won't ask again for these questionnaires?
Well, they can ask for it, but they're not going to. But if they, let's say they choose jurors out of Lucas County and Toledo, those people, they don't know anything about this case. They don't know.
In reality, you're just guessing right now.
Well, I mean, I don't think this case be outside of Cincinnati. I mean, I know it's gotten national coverage, but it's not like here. So.
How many jurors again did you interview?
About half, Deb.
Okay. And do you need to interview the rest, or?
We only interviewed the ones that were willing to talk to us. They were given our numbers to call if they wanted to talk.
They give you some ideas?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
And you just heard Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters and that live news conference right here on 9 on Your Side saying he wanted to retry the Ray Tenzing case, wants a change of venue. Of course, that's not up to him. That's up to Judge Megan Shanahan.
Yeah, that's the kind of the bombshell that we dropped. He stated immediately after the hung jury was announced on that Saturday, almost 2 weeks ago now, that he wanted to retry this case. But in this situation, it's a reversal of what we had seen through a couple of times during the trial. Twice, Stu Matthews, the defense attorney for Ray Tenzing, asked to change the venue. Both times, Judge Megan Shanahan denied that request. It will be once again up to the judge in this case.
It's also interesting, and maybe not so much, Stu Matthews, the attorney, of course, for Ray Tenzing, says he does not want a change of venue at this point. Obviously, he came out with a hung jury, which in Ray Tenzing's case was a minor victory in that case going into this case. But this is one of the situations where he said that the victim's advocate spoke with the DuBose family. Obviously, the DuBose family wanted a retrial. In fact, that was a primary concern of theirs once this hung jury was announced.
And again, to kind of reiterate the change of venue request from that standpoint, he mentioned that he would either be Columbus or in Cleveland in that case. And then you mentioned, it was interesting, we were having the conversation alongside, Cleveland has had a case somewhat similar to this with Tamir Rice.
Right. Tamir Rice, a young black boy who was shot by a white police officer. In that case, though, the grand jury decided not to bring charges at all against him. But if you head to Cuyahoga County, which was, again, one of the choices, obviously he wants a metropolitan area in his mind, a similar city to Cincinnati. If you head to Cleveland, they may not know about the DuBose trial, but they certainly have been through a similar situation.
Emotional.
Exactly.
Let's get to our reporters in the field now. Allie Kramer was inside of the press conference inside the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office with Joe Dieter. She joins us live now with more from her perspective of that press conference.
Chris and Catherine, quite a different tone here today as we've just learned that Prosecutor Joe Dieters will retry this case. We talked a lot with him about the change of venue. He will make that request, and that request will go to Judge Megan Shanahan. She ultimately will decide if there will be a change of venue in this case. That will be very expensive. Prosecutor Dieters said that it's possible that they go to Columbus, to Franklin County, or to Cleveland, that's Cuyahoga County, to retry this case. And Prosecutor Dieters believes that that's the best possible option because those jurors will not be afraid of their identities being released. They haven't been exposed to this. Now, he didn't say that he's studied how the media has covered this in those other markets, but what I can tell you is this case received national attention, and certainly both the Columbus and Cleveland markets have been following this as well. This press release coming out just moments ago as well says that Tenzing will be, again, retried on both the murder and the involuntary manslaughter. Excuse me, that was voluntary manslaughter. Dieters also mentioned that on Friday night of those jury deliberations, you'll remember the hung jury came Saturday morning, the vote was 10-2 for voluntary manslaughter. And of course, they simply could not come up with that decision on later on Saturday morning. So what we're discussing now is that timeline for another change of venue, for the request for that change of venue, which will come sometime on Judge Megan Shanahan's docket in the very near future. The earliest maybe possible retrial of this case, Dieters believes, maybe sometime in the spring. He says, bottom line, they need to do better. Prosecutor Dieters had two assistants in this case, Mark Pietmeyer and Rick Gibson, and he as well tried part of it and actually was in charge of the closing arguments, in which case he says that he faults himself for this case and is clearly taking it personally, and he says he will again be part of this case. So we're just wrapping up inside here. No word on how the family is reacting to this right now. Dieters says he did not personally talk to the DuBose family in this case, but Sharina Allen has been very vocal about wanting this to be retried. So have black clergy members, that is, in this case, Bishop Bobby Hilton. So those are certainly people we'll be reaching out to very shortly, and it's our understanding we'll be checking in with Tom McKee here in just a minute. So for now, we're going to wrap up inside, head outside, and we will send it back to you in the studio.
Allie, we appreciate it. A couple of important points there. They keep the charges from murder and involuntary manslaughter because that means that there's no need for a second grand jury to indict. If he were to amend the charges, they would have to get another grand jury from that standpoint. Another interesting point that I think you took away from this, and Stu Matthews kind of reiterated it during the trial itself, Joe Dieters has never had a change of venue. Stu Matthews said in his entire career he's never received a change of venue when he asked for that request.
In fact, Dieters says he can't remember one in Hamilton County at all. So we'll see what happens from this point forward. We also have Tom McKee, who's been covering this case from the beginning, the very beginning. He's live outside the Hamilton County Courthouse now with reaction. Tom.
Well, good morning. One of the things that's most interesting, some might be asking, why would the trial be next spring? Well, Judge Megan Shanahan is due to have a baby in the next few weeks or so, so that has to be a major factor in this decision. Two other notes of Joe Dieters' comments. The fact that there was some sentiments in the jury room that should have not been in there, he said. The idea that they had sympathy for Ray Tenzing. The idea that they had a possible sentiment for discussions about punishment, which were both inappropriate. Both were warned not to do so. But, again, getting back to that change of venue, it's usually the defense asks for a change of venue, but in this case, the state asked for the change of venue, and one person who's very concerned or interested in that is noted criminal attorney Carl Lewis. Carl, what do you think of that?
I am blown away. I'm shocked. It's like the blockbuster moment. I would have hedged and lost everything if I ever thought that the state would be seeking a change of venue. As you stated, defense normally wants that, and for Joe Dieters and the prosecutor's office to ask for a change of venue is something that's got all of us scratching our head and wondering why.
The idea that Joe Dieters said very clearly, 95% he believes of the people in Hamilton County have heard something about this case, and all those jurors in that jury pool walked into that room with a little bit of knowledge of this case no matter what. How hard is it to put that aside?
It's interesting to me. I'm not sure, not having full knowledge about what Stu Matthews' previous trial motions were, the pretrial motions. If, in fact, that was Dieters' sentiment and the state of Ohio's sentiment, why didn't they have a change of venue at the initial trial? Again, if Stu Matthews asked for a change of venue, it should have been unopposed, and they could have probably moved to another county. The interesting concern for anyone with a change of venue is where do you go? We go to a neighboring county, Claremont County, Brown County, Butler County. You're still within that same foreseeable circle of potential, not same jurors, but that have heard about it. If you go someplace like Cuyahoga, Franklin County, maybe less have heard about it, but this is a very, very high-profile case, and the same type of case being police officer-involved shooting is not going to change.
When you pull the jury in a case like this, when you said only the jurors that called them back, about half of them called them back and wanted to talk about it, what can they learn about that case? What can the defense learn about it too, or the prosecution learn for a retrial? What strategies can they take from that to change?
Every jury trial that I have, I always ask the judge to allow me to speak with the jurors. If the jurors are willing to speak with me and the prosecutor, then it gives you a lot of insight on what you could probably do different next time. Was there anything that we said that offended you, that we thought was just trial strategy, but someone may have taken offense? Is there anything that I could do better? Was there something that I wore? Was there something that I did? Was there body language? Were there facial expressions? Jurors tell you a lot, and sometimes it's eye-opening. It's things that you didn't even think about. It's like, wow. Some jurors will tell you, I don't care what you do next time around. I don't think it's going to change. We are going to continue to vote for guilt or not guilt. So Joe Deters, Stu Matthews, all want to learn what they can do better the next time around to help themselves with their case. So that's why you ask the jurors.
How important is this case to this community? Joe Deters made reference on it about the fact there's never been anything quite like this case, especially with the social media aspects of it.
This case is more than just important for this community. It's important for the nation. It's important for the world. I was just blown away when I looked at the news today and looked at all the innocent officers that were shot by just doing their job, as well as individuals that are being pulled over and shot for no reason. So this has a major, major impact on our community, on our society, to say what's going on with citizen police community relations. If this case ends in an acquittal, I think it's going to be very, very bad for our community and for the nation as a whole. If this case ends in a conviction, it's going to give the community some sense that justice has been meted out. Anything short of that, I don't think it's going to be a good day.
Of course, it all depends on, as we've said before, what is your definition of justice? Some people say it means a jail term. Some people say it doesn't mean that.
Justice for me is a fair trial. And a fair trial, I believe, that was handed out the first time. Some would say you could do better. You could do, even Joe Deters says he could do better. But you know what? It all boils down to whether each side received a fair trial. And if jurors, as we talked about before, are bringing things into the jury that they should not be doing, sympathy, bias, prejudice, that's not giving a fair trial to either side.
Fair trial. Do you have comments that you've heard from your cohorts or other defense attorneys? Was that first trial fair in terms of, not for the jury result, but fair how it was presented by both sides?
I believe so. Again, I didn't watch the entire trial, and unless you were there every day, you look at the rules of evidence and what was admitted, what was not admitted, what the judge's rulings were. Judge Shanahan's a great judge. All the lawyers involved are phenomenal lawyers. I think that both sides received a fair trial, and we trust and believe in the process, and we appreciate the jurors.
But the big takeaway for you for this was?
Deters wanted to change the venue. That for me is blockbuster. I'm blown away with that request.
Carl Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you as always.
And again, Carl Lewis saying that he was shocked that a prosecutor would ask for a change of venue, and not normally what is the defense doing that kind of thing for a trial. Again, next spring is the likely time for this trial. Could be Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, Akron. You never know what the judge might say. There is a hearing next Monday. Judge Shanahan might take some under advisement. She might come up with a decision to let us know what's going to be going forward on this very, very controversial and very, very interesting case. Back to you guys in the studio.
Tom, one question for you. We've known that this news conference is going to happen for, several hours now. Is there anyone outside the courthouse? Any protesters, any demonstrators?
There were about, I would say, a half dozen. You can see them there. Dwayne Slavey is showing pictures of about the, I would say, 7, 8 people out front of the prosecutor's office here on 9th Street, the William Howard Taft Law Center. So that's pretty much it. They held a couple of signs. They've done some media interviews. Some people have come, some people have gone. But what you see right there is the essence of the reaction, the response to this. When the announcement was made that there, number one, will be a retrial, and number two, that there was going to be a change of venue requested, there was really nothing audible that you could hear on the street here. There was no kind of cheering. There was no kind of shout out. There was just silence. For everybody was listening on their handheld devices, or in our case, our earpieces and those things. No, it was very quiet, very peaceful. And Joe Deters says, he's always followed the advice of his own counsel. He's not been influenced by the outside, even though he met with a lot of outside community people. He has met with the DeVos family. He knows exactly what they would like to see. And, of course, they are not here today. We'll get their reaction later on. But certainly they have to be in their own mind pleased. I have reached out to Stu Matthews, Ray Tensing attorney, to ask for comment, to ask for an interview on camera. Have not heard anything as of this time. We're certainly going to be pursuing that to get Stu's reaction to this change of venue request, and of course the fact that there will be a retrial on the exact same charges for which there was a hung jury just a mere 10 days ago.
Tom, we'll let you get back to work. Obviously, that'll be an angle of the story that we'll be chasing down throughout the rest of the day right now. So Tom DeMcKee live outside the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office as Joe Dieters once again announcing that he plans to retry Ray Tensing, the former University of Cincinnati police officer, on a murder, involuntary manslaughter charge, and the death of Sam DuBose.
And once a change of venue, again, that deadline from Judge Megan Shanahan that she put forth was Monday. No word if we'll hear more from her on Monday about that or what the process will be going forward over the next several months. But be sure that we will continue to bring you reaction on this decision here at 9 on your side, starting again at noon.
And of course, we'll have more for you online as well at WCPO.com, or you can download the app for your smartphone or your tablet. Right now, we go back to our regular programming.